Convention and Awards 2021. Now, in the house, we have a versatile personality, Mr. Achal Rangaswamy, sir. He is a veteran sales and marketing professional. When it comes to qualification, postgraduate from Delhi University and alumnus of the prestigious St. Stephen's College. In professional area, last job as president marketing with Bell Ceramics Limited. Award winner of the AMA Child's Cardilla Marketing Man of the Year Award. Winner instituted by the Ahmedabad Management Association. When it comes to achievements, he is a professional author of 4 books, life coach, TEDx speaker. When it comes to hobbies, he has 2.5 lakh kilometer infield bullet biker. Use Mohammed Rafi fan, and he is the one who have delivered a TEDx talk at IIM Raipur in the October 2017 on discovering the joy of selling. Ladies and gentlemen, with the thunderous round of applause, please welcome Mr. Achal Rangaswamy, sir. Over to you, Achal, sir.
Thank you very much, Rajat. And thank you, Dr. Praveen, for giving me this opportunity to be present amongst all of you. This world has seen a lot of uncertainties, and I deliberately chose this topic of thriving in a VUCA world and thriving by actually presenting to the VUCA world a very interesting terminology, which I call RIP. To most people, RIP has been, specifically in the last couple of years, a very scary, a negative, a pessimistic, and depressing kind of a thought. But I have a different idea. But even before that, for the benefit of our viewers, for the benefit of our listeners, while most of us do know the meaning of VUCA, I think it would be a good idea to dwell on it for a couple of minutes. VUCA is nothing but an acronym probably coined by management experts or people who had a lot of time on their hands, because the world has always been, like V for volatile, U for uncertain, C for complex, and A for ambiguous. To be honest, 100 years back also, the world would have seen certain uncertainties. 200 years back also, the world would have seen certain volatility. And 400 years back, the world would have seen complexity, and ambiguity has always existed. But I think there has been a more specific focus on this in the last couple of years, because never before in the history of mankind have people been subjected to such a lack of, say, clarity, lack of realization of what is going to happen, the inability to anticipate any situation beyond the tip of their nose, or even wondering whether they can travel safely, eat food anywhere, or go and meet people and greet them very warmly. So when we look at a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, there are obviously a lot of questions arising in people's minds. Scary thoughts, negative thoughts, pessimistic thoughts. And people often tell that when it's difficult to see beyond the tip of your nose, how can I as a businessman plan for the next 5 years? Or a student says, how do I prepare for an examination which is going to be, a couple of years at the end of my study? That's going to define my career. And there are so many other people who say, I don't even know if I'm going to be alive 2 years down the line, 6 months down the line. And in some places, unfortunately, it is almost so bad that people didn't know whether they were going to be able to get a cylinder of oxygen or a bed that could accommodate them in a hospital. So in the light of the kind of situation that we have seen, experienced, and undergone, I thought of looking at the entire scenario from a slightly different perspective. Even before I go into my own interpretation of saying RIP to a VUCA world, I would like to actually dwell on the place where I'm staying currently. Well, I used to live in Ahmedabad until a couple of years ago. And in the winter of 2019, we shifted from Ahmedabad to a place called Auroville on the outskirts of Pondicherry. It's a beautiful place. And I was born in a coastal town, Madras, which is now called Chennai. And a full circle, I have come back now to a place which is very close to the sea. My house is just 3 kilometers from the beaches, the Auroville Beach, the Serenity Beach, the Pondicherry beaches, and things like that. So it's pretty natural that I take a lot of morning walks on the beach, along the waters. One particular day, I noticed something different. The sea was becoming darker, the sky was becoming grayer. And I was given to understand that they are anticipating a cyclone. Well, in the last couple of months also, we've been subjected to a lot of heavy monsoon, heavy winds, thunderstorms lashing this area. And last year we had a couple of cyclones back to back to add to all the COVID worries. Now, one thing that I've noticed is when the Coast Guards put up the signal and the fishermen on the sea, whose homes are very close to the sea, are warned and told not to venture into the sea and not to go fishing. It's like telling a doctor not to go to the hospital. It's like telling a salesperson not to go to the market. It's telling a homemaker not to enter the kitchen. When the fisherman is told you can't go to sea, what does he do? So typically when you're told a student can't go to work, or can't go to study, he can't go to school or college, or an office goer can't go to work, what does he think? Similarly, fishermen should have been feeling demotivated, down, depressed, constrained. But I've noticed one thing. These fishermen sit at home and they repair their nets. वो मछली पकड़ने के जाल की मरम्मत करते हैं बराबर से. And there's a reason for it. You see, they can't venture into the water, they cannot catch the fish, they cannot sit on what is called the catamaran, the tied logs of wood with a rope. That is what is their fishing boat. In Tamil, it is called a catamaran. And so they can't even access the water. They sit at home and they fix their nets. Now, the question that I have been asking people in the last couple of years, I've been asking a lot of youngsters, I've been asking corporates, I've been asking people who work. Did you take advantage of the lockdown? Did you take advantage of the work from home kind of environment to sit at home and to fix your nets? Now, what could be the net for a student? What could be the net for a business person? What could be the net for an educationist? And what could be the net for a coach like me? It's all about doing your homework. In the language used by cricketers, it is called going back to the nets. In the mountaineering lingo, it's about going back to base camp. And in the case of any human being, it's like sitting down and thinking as to what am I going to do based on the learnings that I have of the last so many years. Yes, there is a constraint. Yes, you've been told you can't venture out. You can't even go into the neighboring colony. You can't go to your office. You can't go to your school. You can't go to the marketplace. You can't go to the place where you work. But When you are asked to sit down at one place, what happens to your mind? Does it become even more restless? Or do you pause? Do you think? Do you introspect? And you look at what are the positives and what are the negatives? What are the pros? What are the cons? What is on the plus side? What's on the other side that I can do? And things like that. So even before I talk about RIP, my question to all of you listening to me is, did you take advantage of the last 18 odd months to fix your nets, whatever kind of nets that you have? At almost the risk of sounding a little arrogant or sounding like a preacher, what I want to ask you is, if you haven't been doing something about your physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual health in the last 18 odd months, have you wasted your time? Have you frittered away a golden opportunity to sit and fix your nets? Yes, there is a negative scenario. There is a constraint. There is an issue on hand. What are the things you can do? Can you mop and rave and rant and mope and cry and worry about it and blame the whole world in general and the government in particular? Or can you sit down and say, what can I do based on the circumstances that exist right now? There are certain constraints. Well, what is it that I can do to better myself? I know people did a lot of things because we were all actively in touch with each other. I can't think of a time when people were so much actively in touch with each other than between March 2020 and today. In fact, people have probably got back to their usual routine and got back to the treadmill of life. Which brings me to first, expert opinions of people, learned people, educated people, people who teach, people who write, people who share their thoughts in the public domain. They have come up with various theories of handling the VUCA world, not only somehow surviving or living in the VUCA world, but thriving. And so they talk about trying and getting clarity, trying and looking at opportunities, so on and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you my own concept of RIP. And let me actually dwell on each of these alphabets to talk about three words. The first word, R, is for reflection. What is reflection? Thinking, चिंतन, सोचना, उस बात को लेकर गहराई से सोचना. Looking into the situation as it exists, objectively, without getting carried away, without becoming emotionally overreactive to the scenario. I know it's not easy. It's easier said than done. Many of us have gone through extremely tough times. A lot of us have seen severe illness, death, loss of close people, and a general feeling of despair all around us. But when you sit down to look at it objectively, it reminds me of two very interesting and two successful characters in the world. Edmund Hillary, accompanied by Sherpa Tenzing, climbed Mount Everest in the year 1953. Everybody knows that. A lot of people also know that Hillary attempted Everest for the third time when he became successful. On two previous occasions, he had failed. On the return from the second attempt, the failed attempt, he turned back, looked at Mount Everest and said, "You are a mountain, you can't grow. I am a human being, I can grow." And he went on to sit down. He took notes. And what they did, one of the most important things that happens when you reflect is, got under the skin of the subject, looked at Mount Everest, but didn't look at Mount Everest as Mount Everest by itself, but actually a series of peaks, a series of small mountains. And at the peak of that, at the summit of that, was Mount Everest. So Hillary and Tenzing actually dissected that huge mountain to 29,000 plus square feet above the ground, at 12 feet above ground. What they did actually was dissected Mount Everest into many, many small surmountable peaks. So when you are reflecting on any problem, I'm not talking about COVID alone. I'm talking about any situation where you're faced with serious issues and something is going to be bogging you down. Can you break that problem down into more understandable parts by taking a pencil or a pen or even cutting that huge jigsaw puzzle into smaller pieces? Hillary went on to climb Mount Everest very successfully. And after that, the barrier was broken. And today we have hundreds of people who are visually impaired, people who probably aren't as strong as the others, people who have had certain physical handicaps, many women, many youngsters, many mothers, many grandmothers, but a lot of people that you would associate with not being successfully able to cover mountains. They've been doing it because the barrier which was here was surmounted. So that is the story of Hillary. Reflection, thinking very carefully, objectively analyzing the problem on hand without getting emotionally worked up. The second example, and perhaps a little controversial because you have all heard of Lance Armstrong. Now, Lance Armstrong is a cycling legend, an international cycling champion, unfortunately in the news in more recent years for the wrong reason. Perhaps for the consumption of drugs that were banned or that he was not supposed to use as a sports person and then compete in international competitions. Now, if I were to give benefit of doubt, I'm a great follower of various sports. And I always tell people that a very, very accomplished man may probably not have done it intentionally. Let's give him benefit of doubt for a couple of minutes and say that he did it because he was facing another scenario. And what was that? Lance Armstrong was diagnosed with cancer. And when he was diagnosed with cancer, he realized that most people have this very strange attitude, which of course is common. It is called a fight or flight. When you're told you have cancer, the only two things you probably do, that the only two things that probably come to mind. One, surrender and say, okay, that's the end of it. My life is over. And so you die a dozen deaths even before you actually die. And the other is fight. But then what happens in that fight is there are knee-jerk reactions. You listen to so many people. You take so many different opinions. You do not heed one particular single thought on which you have tremendous faith. Because if you probably do that, you may still be able to, faith can move mountains. But then when you listen to 27 different doctors, you probably are going to end up trying 27 different ways of overcoming or managing that illness. Lance Armstrong went to school with the subject of cancer. He literally, like I tell salespeople at sales training programs, fall in love with your customer, get to understand him inside out, get under the skin of the customer and his needs. Or, if a very interesting person moves into your neighborhood and you would like to associate with that person a little more, what do? You do a lot of research. You do dispassionate research. You do unattached research. You actually try and find out who's that lovely looking neighbor. Same way, Lance Armstrong went into the study of cancer more like a student than a patient or a doctor. He looked at how it happens, why it happens, where does it come from, what are the implications and what could happen. Reflection. R for reflection. Absolutely unemotional, absolutely detached. And he got to understand that this is what happens. And this is how you need to present yourself and the way you need to preserve yourself, look after yourself, secure your health. And he finally overcame, I will not use the word battle, he overcame this situation that cancer was presenting in front of him. So that is the success story number 2. There are many such. On a very lower level, almost an insignificant level, it happened with me. The Dussehra of 2019, we shifted from Ahmedabad to Auroville. A lot of people say, at this age, you're going to move. Such a drastic change. You've lived in Gujarat for a hell of a long time, and you're going to a place where the culture is different, the place is different, the weather is different, the environment is different. Yes, initially, it looked very scary, almost a jungle kind of environment, no gated community, no housing society, just the 3 of us, my wife, me, and my son, and a jungle around us. When lockdown was declared, and prior to that, I'd made a couple of trips to Ahmedabad to talk at the Ahmedabad Management Association at a couple of clients' places. I was looking forward to those trips and come back home, lock ourselves inside the house, or sit on the beach at Pondicherry, come back to Auroville, come back to our home, lock ourselves, so that because nature was actually around us and nature would peep into our homes, nature would enter our homes through the windows, through the doors, through various openings. And when I mean nature, I mean nature in all respects, including reptiles and animals and birds and insects and so many other things. So we were wondering whether we had taken the right decision. But then something happened. We were compelled to stay indoors, so we were compelled to stay within our own campus. And thus began the creation of a beautiful garden, a lovely walking track, and the setting for my own resurgence in terms of my physical health, my mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And I discovered a new Achal Rangaswamy. I have been jokingly telling people in the last couple of years that I haven't been so busy in the last 20 years as I have in the last 20 months, talking, delivering webinars and sales programs, conducting a record number of sales masterclasses, things like that. Of course, I've traveled a little bit very carefully, shot a couple of video training programs, selling, negotiation, and things like that. I've been helping out people in underprivileged communities in a part of Jharkhand. But then we're very careful about what one can do and what one should do, and which brings me to the subject of introspection. What is introspection? The reflection that you've done, you turn it inwards now. And you focus the entire learning on yourself. You put the light on yourself and you start thinking, okay, we have a situation. We have an issue. So what? अब उसका मेरे ऊपर क्या असर होगा? How am I going to be impacted by what is happening? COVID-19, as it was called then, we are already approaching 22 now. COVID-19 presented certain serious circumstances. And I asked myself, where is it? Where is it most severe? What is the impact? What could be the impact on my country, my city, my town, my locality, my neighborhood, me, my family? And then we learned that if you follow certain basic norms, you're keeping yourself safe. The second thing, given the circumstances that you cannot move, you cannot travel, you really can't go and meet people, touch them, hold them close, shake hands with them, or sit close with them and have meals. What can you do? So you turn the light inwards, you look at yourself and you ask. And then you realize, I wrote this morning in my early morning motivational thought called Rangaism, which is subscription based. And I wrote, when you realize that you are but a speck, a tiny speck of a particle, of an atom, of a small little element on Earth, and even much smaller than that in the universe, you come down to Earth heavily with a thud. And that thud that you hear is the most important degree that you have collected in your educational journey. I'm such a small speck that there can only be so much harm to me. And there are a lot of things that I can do. Like I said, on the 22nd or 23rd of March, the Prime Minister announced initially a Janata curfew, followed by a lockdown, which none of us really anticipated would stretch beyond maybe a month or two or three. And then it went on. There were various stages of lockdown, there were various stages of unlocking. But the fact remained that life was not going to come back to the same usual normal as it was before 2019. And that introspection led me to understand one very simple thing. मैं क्या कर सकता हूं, मैं क्या नहीं कर सकता. There is an oft repeated prayer. A lot of people have shared this prayer. A lot of people have been talking about it in recent times also. I also did it recently at the Ahmedabad Management Association. But from the year 1996, I have held one prayer very close to my heart. And that prayer is, first in English and then in Hindi. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. ईश्वर मुझे सहनशीलता दे और स्वीकार करने की हिम्मत और ताकत दे कि मैं जो चीज बदल नहीं सकता हूं उन्हें समझूं, जो चीज बदल सकता हूं उन्हें बदलने का धैर्य, हिम्मत और शक्ति दे, और उन दोनों के बीच में जो अंतर है उन्हें समझने के लिए अक्ल दे, बुद्धि दे. I know it's not so easy, but then if you've been saying this to yourself for almost a quarter of a century, which is a large part of your living life, you do tend to borrow from it. I have been following this for so many years. I can't do anything about the rain. We have been having for the last 4 weeks very, very heavy rains. Today the sun is smiling on us. But then the rains can play havoc. You are growing trees around you. You've grown a lot of trees around you. Those वो पेड़ हैं, कुछ प्री पेड़ हैं, कुछ पोस्ट पेड़ हैं, बहुत सारे फल देते हैं, फूल देते हैं. And then there's a lot of rain and you feel disappointed. And then you know you can't go out anywhere. You can't do anything. You can't do much about it. I can't go upstairs and control the shower tap. But can I invest in a raincoat? Can I invest in an umbrella? Or if necessary, a boat? I mean, the situation warrants that. Can I do anything about a delayed aircraft? Can I do anything about the train that is stuck in the fog in winter in northern India? Well, surely I can keep a book in my bag. I can call a couple of friends and ask them how they are. I've been telling people. During lockdown, did you call up people? Did you talk to them? If you thought of somebody, did you message him? If you thought of messaging somebody, did you call him? If you thought of calling somebody, did you take all the precautions and go and meet him? Of course, following all the rules. Because, friends, when you are a little closer to people in terms of how you talk to them, make them feel good during tough times. Top of mind recall, as they say. When the good times come, people turn around and respond to you and they reciprocate in the same way. I've been telling salespersons and marketing professionals, did you touch the heart of every client and every prospect of yours during the tough times? अच्छे वक्त पे तो सभी साथ देंगे, बुरे वक्त पे क्या आपने कहा, मैं हूं ना. So that's introspection. What can be the impact on me? What can be the impact on my family? Now, you have an important role to play as a member, as an integral member of your family. And I am reminded of a wonderful announcement made by the air hostesses every time a flight takes off. And they say, due to a fall in cabin pressure, individual oxygen masks will drop down automatically. In such a situation, pull the mask to your face and breathe normally. Should you be accompanied by an infant or a senior citizen, first of all, make sure that you get adequate quota of oxygen. Now, most people will say, how selfish, how mean. But I say, how realistic, how practical. If you're fit, you can carry the senior citizen or the infant to safety. If you give that privilege to these people, will they be able to help you? So you have a major role to play when such a situation arises, and that is, first of all, look after yourself. Put yourself into the right frame of mind, put yourself into the right physical shape, which is why I say, if you haven't been doing something about your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual balance in the last 2 months, 2 years, have you frittered away your precious time? So that's introspection for you. Turning the light inwards, looking at the situation, looking at the impact of that situation on you. What are the things you can do? What are the things that are not in your control? And how about focusing on what you can do? And understanding the difference between inability and ability, between capability and incapability, and focusing on what you can work on. Which brings me to the third letter and the third word, P, for preparation. So you have R for reflection, I for introspection, and P for preparation. And here I can't think of a better animal or a better entity than the national animal of India, the tiger. Look at the tiger preparing to catch its prey. शिकार करने की तैयारी में वो शेर कैसे बैठा रहता है. The tiger does not make a wrong pounce. The tiger does not make an incorrect jump. He will never catch the prey by the tail. First of all, the tiger doesn't go for a kill unless he's hungry. The tiger does not attack human beings unless he's very old, very injured, and incapable of hunting. But then he's preparing. He focuses on the prey, he focuses on his shikar for half an hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and waits for the right time. So what is he doing in the meanwhile? He's reflecting, he's introspecting. And then he goes for what is called the jugular vein, and that's it. Ek jhatka or shikar dher. And this is exactly what I mean. If you have been reflecting, if you have been looking at the pros and cons of every situation, if you have been looking at introspecting, if you've been looking at how any of these things applies to you, believe me, I'm not only talking of COVID, I'm not even talking of a VUCA world. The world was always VUCA. I'm talking about any situation in life. Are you preparing for that ultimate scenario where you're face to face with a business person, with a customer, with anybody with whom you're having any kind of transaction, so that you're approaching that person in a positive frame of mind and you are ready to go for the jugular? Were the students preparing? I know a lot of students couldn't even go to the campus for a 1-year course or a 1.5-year course. They never really saw their auditorium or library or the playing field, the reason for which one would like to go to an institution. I remember my son always telling me, Dad, if a school doesn't have a football field or a cricket field or a wonderful library, it isn't an educational institution. So I know a lot of you would have missed out on that. But fortunately, there is something called the University of Life. And I do not talk only about work. I'm sure each one of us caught up on our relatives, our friends, our contacts. We learned a lot of things. I remember connecting with 4 friends of mine from 1985 days, where we used to work together in a company called Xerox. And we ran a Sunday evening online chat show called Cricket Chai Chit Chat. And we got a lot of leading cricketers. We in fact began with my school days idol, Salim Durrani Sahab, 86-year-old man from Jamnagar, who's never ever sat in front of a computer or been online. And we got him to chat with us. And I could even ask him questions in Gujarati. We did a lot of very interesting. I completed a manuscript for a book. Normally I read 100 books in a year. I ended up reading 125. And I connected with a lot of people. Our school group, the 1974 school pass-out group, connected today via Zoom, meeting up every Sunday in different parts of the world, and we rediscovered our younger days. I'm not only referring to hardcore work or business, because you need balance. And though you are surrounded by issues, you're surrounded by challenges, every time you rejuvenate yourself, this work-life balance. I'm very fortunate that I am in a place. I wish I could have taken you on a tour of the place where I live, but I plan to do an offline program at my own campus at Auroville called Enhance Your Personal Productivity, purely based on my learnings in the last 2 years. The body, the mind, and the soul need to be aligned, need to be calm, need to be composed so that you can become productive. I am extremely confident that if you slow down your mind, there are a lot of things that come in your control. Like the Buddha asked his pupil one day to get him some water and gave him an earthen pot. The young man went to the river where they were walking by, and as he was going to fill up water from the river, a bullock cart passed by, disturbed the water, disturbed the mud below the water, and the water became unfit for consumption. It was muddy. He came back. The Buddha said, "Relax, sit down." The young man was perturbed. He couldn't get his guru water to drink. The guru said, "Relax, sit down." 10 minutes later, he signaled, "Go." The young man went there. The water was clean, it was potable, and he could bring it to the Buddha to drink. And that is when he realized the lesson. If your mind is unsettled, you really can't do anything. Just like the empty bowl Buddha presented to a set of villagers, which had a lot of dust and dirt on it. The villagers cleaned it up. And the lesson that they learned was, if you want to absorb anything, if you want to learn anything, first of all, you need to fill whatever you want to fill in a vessel that is clean, that is without any kind of contamination. So, ladies and gentlemen, RIP. Reflection, introspection, preparation. My 3 words for managing not only the VUCA world, but even thriving in it. I have numerous stories of so many friends, so many ex-colleagues who realize that they have a huge amount of creativity. I do fully understand, ladies and gentlemen, because I am a person who, has a meter on. I am a coach, and the day I don't coach people, my meter actually isn't working. So, I am in a situation which is the same as anybody else. I also need to work. The only thing was I adjusted my stance. Prior to COVID, the only bit of online teaching I would have done would have been sitting in the office of a real estate company in Ahmedabad with the Ahmedabad team sitting in front of me, and across the video conferencing screen, the Chennai or Hyderabad or Baroda teams. Now that was it. A dozen interactions that I would have had. But probably within a week of declaration, maybe less than a week of the declaration of lockdown, there I was. And whether it was Zoho or Google or Microsoft Teams or Zoom, I have been enjoying talking to people, listening to them, helping them out. And I've been enjoying chatting up with schoolmates, chatting up with old colleagues, chatting up with cricketers, doing a lot of useful things. I'm sure you've all done it. Dwell on it. Look at the benefits that you got out of reconnecting with your family members, your friends, your colleagues after a long time. There are a lot of positive takeaways from what has happened. Let us take those lessons in a positive way, but at the same time, remember the lessons that we needed to follow during the strictest lockdown times. I was visiting Ahmedabad just 10 days back. I was a trifle disappointed to see people not seriously following certain norms. I only wish people do it. Yes, there are weddings. Yes, there are celebrations. Do catch up with people, but ensure that you look after yourself and that you practice RIP. My warm greetings to all of you. I'm done with what I wanted to say, and I'm open to questions in case there are any. Thank you very much. You can catch up with me on Instagram at Achal Rangaswamy, the coach, or on LinkedIn as Achal Rangaswamy, or on Twitter as Rangaisms for you. All you need to do is give me a shout. I can hear you. Thank you very much. Have a beautiful RIP life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing A lot of stories. I think it's a really inspiring, and the way you have shared insights, it will it will give a lot of learnings for the early risers, for the entrepreneurs and the MSME owners. And yeah, so now the room is open for question answers. And Rajat, I'm sure we got a couple of questions from our participants from YouTube. So Rajat, it's over to you.
Yes, Praveen. Thank you, Praveen. So first of all, a billion thanks to you, Achal sir, for making time on this crazy Sunday morning and sharing such insights and letting us know that things are not to take like a battle. They are only situation and we can overcome it. Now, in this main time Q&A sections, I would like to request you to please help us by answering few of the questions. So first question is VUCA, which refers to volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. With all these words, people are scared of, as how you explained. Then question is then who will take a lead on this reality? Could you please assist?
There was a small little break in your voice. Could you please repeat what you said in the end?
Sure. So as you explained, sir, that VUCA, which refers to volatile, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, then who will take a lead on this reality? Could you please assist?
You see, volatility का मतलब क्या है? Actually, volatile means किसी भी वक्त अजीब तरह के reactions होते हैं. When you go to the chemistry lab in school or college and you're testing out a couple of chemicals, sometimes things settle down, sometimes there is a loud burst and the test tube also cracks. The world will see this. World wars have happened, civil wars have happened. Change is the only constant in life. At any point of time, certain kinds of reactions will happen. When this happens, the first thing to do is, like I said, take a step back, try and look at things from a bit of a distance. Kabhi cricket mein bhi, having spent a lot of time playing the game, I've learned one thing, that you get a lovely view of the game from forward shot leg. लेकिन unfortunately forward shot leg ना batsman का pad और bat ही नजर आता है. You should not be looking at anything else. You can't look कि beyond the fence बहुत खूबसूरत चेहरा किसका है. Otherwise वही हाल होगा जो मेरा हुआ है. Right dilated pupil, right eye में. That is because I took my eye off the ball, fielding at slip. So, but कभी-कभी deep third man या deep fine leg से पूरे ground का नजरिया first नजारा बहुत बढ़िया नजर आता है. There are times when you need to step back a little bit and take an objective view of what is happening. Sometimes you get too close to a problem. Go back, take a couple of steps back, because volatility hogi is going to affect you. So take a step back, detach yourself. Iska actually asar mere upar kitna hota hai, you need to understand. We are hearing about Omicron. Omicron hai, दुनिया के किसी कोने में है और उसे नहीं आने देने का एक ही तरीका है. वही rules follow करो जो you were supposed to do a year back or a year and a half back. Uncertainty कब नहीं था? You go for a job interview. Do you know you're going to get the job? No, you don't. But you don't worry about whether I'm going to get the job or not. You do your best. In fact, let me tell you this. This is a very important tip for youngsters and for job seekers and for youngsters wanting to make a career. आप जितना टेंस हो इंटरव्यू देते वक्त, उससे ज्यादा टेंशन रिक्रूटर को है टू रिक्रूट अ डैम गुड कैंडिडेट. उसके बॉस ने बोला भैया जल्दी से लोगों को लेके आओ, काम पे डालो. We are struggling without manpower. So if you understand that, similarly a customer, अब किसी को ऑक्सीजन के सिलेंडर की जरूरत है, किसी को ब्लड की जरूरत है, वो तो लड़ाई झगड़ा करके ब्लड बैंक में या हॉस्पिटल में जाके करेगा. But even otherwise, if you understand why someone wants to buy a product and get under that issue, you will realize that he has more tension than you have. So relax and look at things. I hope I've answered your question.
Definitely, sir. Definitely, it really helps to understand it in a better manner. Now we have another question, which is it right to create negative mindset by VUCA word similar to that YK2?
हाँ, वो तो देखिए, the mind is a chattering monkey. वो शांत बैठता नहीं है. बहुत पहले जब याहू नया आया था, when we just got exposed to the internet, 98, 99, 2000, Yahoo का पेज अगर आप खोलेंगे तो Yahoo Mail के ऊपर वो बार के ऊपर there was a monkey and he'll say hit me. So you take your cursor to go and hit him and that monkey will move to the other side of the screen. The mind is like that. उसे आप कर्सर लेकर शांत करने के लिए जाओगे वो इधर से उधर जाएगा. So one of the best things is to say इन चीजों का मेरे ऊपर असर नहीं होने देने वाला है. Entertain the thought, don't fight it. उसे आने दीजिए उस thought को. यहाँ से आने दीजिए, यहाँ से जाने दीजिए. Easier said than done. आसान नहीं है, मुश्किल है, लेकिन नामुमकिन नहीं है. Because ये डॉन भी नहीं है और 11 मुल्कों की पुलिस भी नहीं है. It is a question of your own mind. You are the dawn of your mind. Like they say, time flies. लोग कहते हैं वक्त ही नहीं मिलता है, time flies. मैं कहता हूँ time flies, but you are the pilot. A lot of people tell me, sir, मैं आपके प्रोग्राम में आना चाहता था, लेकिन unfortunately time नहीं मिला. ये प्रोग्राम पता किस सब्जेक्ट पे था? टाइम मैनेजमेंट पर था. So you know the point that I'm trying to make is we are ourselves responsible. ठीक है, कहीं कोई झगड़ा हुआ है, कहीं किसी ने एक मंदिर को या मस्जिद को या किसी को डेमोलिश कर दिया. सबसे पहले तो आपको अपने मन को शांत करना पड़ेगा instead of reacting and making a provocative statement just because आपके पास ये 2 buttons हैं मोबाइल के, कहीं भी कुछ ख्याल लिख देना. So it's very easy to breed a negative mental mindset. But the first thing is, और ये Y2K जब आ रहा था, I remember because I was holidaying at Pondicherry, very close to where I stay right now. पहली बार ये जगह हम देखने के लिए आए थे. And Y2K means the birth of a new millennium, but it is going to come with a huge problem of computers and all kinds of issues. क्या हुआ? कुछ नहीं हुआ. I was sitting on the beach waiting for the sun to rise. You know, December 31st, 1999 खत्म हो रहा था. Early morning, 5 o'clock at Pondicherry Beach, I was visiting. 1st Jan, I was waiting for the sun to rise. And I kept waiting for the sun to rise. Finally, the sun rose. The sun, S-O-N, came and said, Happy New Year, Dad. So, jo hoga, अच्छा ही hoga. The sun will come and greet you. Everything will be fine, provided your mind is open to entertaining positive thoughts. क्या है रजत? एक नेगेटिव पैराट्रूपर अगर चाहेगा तो उसका पैराशूट नहीं खुलेगा. द माइंड इज लाइक अ पैराशूट, इट वर्क्स ओनली व्हेन इट इज ओपन. और फिर नीचे जमीन पर तेजी से आते वक्त वो ये भी सोचेगा नीचे इज देयर अ जीप वेटिंग फॉर मी टू टेक मी टू हेडक्वार्टर. मैं तो कहता हूँ तेनू की फर्क पैंदा है यार, नीचे जीप है क्या है, क्योंकि तू जिस हालत में पाया जाएगा, जीप नहीं, एम्बुलेंस भी नहीं, व्हील बैरो की जरूरत होगी. So we need to keep a positive outlook.
So interesting, sir. Definitely, ये बिल्कुल इससे बेटर तरीके से शायद ही कोई इसको एक्सप्लेन कर पाएगा. It's very interesting to understand like कि कैसे नेगेटिव माइंडसेट को अपन दूर कर सकते हैं. So, my dear viewers, if you are watching it on Vyapaar Jagat TV, I would like to request you to please subscribe and mention Mera Vyapar, Meri Pehchan. And yes, if you have questions, you can do ask to our delighted sir. We are monitoring our YouTube channel and we are taking questions from there. And here we have another question, sir. So the question is like, don't you think we need to modify VUCA by such words which creates positive atmosphere in challenging situations? It's quite similar to the previous question.
Correct. अब VUCA है कुछ लोगों के लिए है. अब वो मार्केटिंग गुरु या मैनेजमेंट एक्सपर्ट बोलना चाहता है कि VUCA है तो उसे बोलने दीजिए. मैंने तो I am reminded of Sam Walton, the founder of Walmart. And Walmart had reached a certain stage of growth. जब पहली बार recession occurred in a very big way. And I remember because I was very actively involved living out of Baroda, working for a building materials company, and I was head of marketing then. And yes, we knew foreign investments in construction in India had ground to a halt. Tile companies were doing very badly because it's a continuous process plant. Demand ही नहीं था, घर नहीं बन रहे थे, tiles नहीं बिक रही थी. So there were issues. There's no doubt about it. But and so said recession आ रहा है. I remember मेरे जिंदगी का सबसे पहला public talk AMA में on the 2nd of June 2000 was on meeting the challenges of marketing in recessionary times. Now, how did I manage to deliver the talk in 2000? Because 98, 99 में, instead of saying recession आ रहा है, we got busy doing our work with more passion, more interest, and maybe with a little more intelligence. Sam Walton of Walmart was asked a question, what do you think about recession? He said, I studied the subject and I've decided I will not participate in it. मुझे कोई लेना देना नहीं है. अभी VUCA है, आप हुक्का पियो. That is one way of looking at it. मेरे शहर में पौंडीचेरी में जूका करके एक बहुत बढ़िया चॉकलेट का ब्रांड है. तो हर बार VUCA की याद आती है, मैं जाके एक छोटा सा टुकड़ा चॉकलेट का ले लेता हूँ. It gives me a lot of energy and wonderful taste. मैं मजाक में बोल रहा हूँ. But the point that I'm trying to make is, it's up to you. Whoever has asked me this question, I would like to tell this young friend, it's entirely up to you to say VUCA है नहीं. VUCA तो आपके चारों बाजू. मैं कह रहा हूँ, मैं आज से कितने साल पहले पैदा हुआ था, VUCA तभी भी था. मुझे ये भी नहीं मालूम था मुझे स्कूल में एडमिशन मिलेगा, कॉलेज में एडमिशन मिलेगा, दिल्ली रणजी ट्रॉफी टीम में मैं सेलेक्ट होऊंगा कि नहीं. ऐसे सिचुएशंस में आपको एक ही काम करना है, कंटिन्यू टू बॉल, कंटिन्यू टू बैट, कंटिन्यू टू गेट रन्स, कंटिन्यू टू गेट विकेट्स. यू डू योर थिंग. दुनिया को जो करना है करेगी. आई थिंक दैट्स द सिंपलेस्ट वे ऑफ लुकिंग एट इट.
एब्सोल्युटली राइट सर. और एक चीज बहुत सही से आपने बोला कि इट्स एग्जिस्ट, ये है, बट इट्स हाउ वी रिएक्ट, कि कैसे अपन उसको रिएक्ट करते हैं. इट्स रियली वंडरफुल. थैंक यू सो मच फॉर असिस्टिंग अस. Still, we have more questions and we have time. So, my dear viewers, if you do have any questions, you can post your questions on our YouTube live and we will pick your questions from there onwards. Sir, अगला एक और सवाल मेरे पास है कि like things are quite more challenging. So, in today's high competitive scenario, to survive for a small entrepreneur, what is your message to them?
बहुत मौके मिलते हैं इन सब्जेक्ट पर, खासकर पिछले 2-3 सालों में. एंड आई एम गाइडिंग क्वाइट अ फ्यू एंटरप्रेन्योर्स इन बिजनेस. मेरा ये सोचना है, आमतौर पर लोग अपने प्रोडक्ट, अपने बिजनेस, अपने एप्स, अपने सर्विसेज के ऊपर फोकस्ड रहते हैं कि मेरा प्रोडक्ट बहुत बढ़िया है. होगा, जरूर होगा. My answer is, you may think your product, your app or your service is God's gift to humanity. इससे बेहतर जिंदगी में कोई चीज बना ही नहीं. लेकिन एक ही सवाल है, सामने जो बैठा है उसका क्या, उसको क्या चाहिए जिंदगी में. If you are busy trying to figure out दुनिया को किस चीज की जरूरत है, then as an entrepreneur you can get started very fast. Another word, sorry, with due respect to everyone, I don't like the word startup. क्योंकि मैं स्टार्टअप हूँ बोलते बोलते वो स्टार्टिंग वाले मोटरसाइकिल को किक स्टार्ट करने में ही बिजी रहते हैं और वो बुलेट खींच कर ऐसा धुलती मारती है कि आपका हवाई चप्पल हवा में उड़ता है. मेरे साथ भी हुआ था एट द बिगिनिंग ऑफ माय करियर. अगर आप अपने बाइक को बटन से स्टार्ट करते हैं, द बाइक जोन में, इन माय नेबरहुड आई हैव अ लेडी हु राइड्स एन एनफील्ड बुलेट हियर एंड आई जस्ट लुक एट इट कि मैं तो किक करता था उन दिनों, ये तो सिर्फ बटन दबा के स्टार्ट करती हैं. So startup बहुत देर तक मत रहिए, become a get going kind of a man. So entrepreneurs के लिए simplest advice, inside out approach, outside in approach, दोनों को लगाना है. Rather than, ठीक है, your product must be good, your product must be reliable, it must be versatile, it must be operable. लेकिन सबसे important, is it making sense to the other man? Sorry, correction. Is it making business sense to the other man? जब तक राजत मैं आपके साथ आपके काम की, आपके पसंद की, आपके रुचि की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, तब तक आप मुझे क्यों सुनेंगे. और अगर मैं आपको बोल दूं रजत, एक्चुअली आप एक बहुत जबरदस्त एंकर हैं एंड मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि आपको अभी इंटरनेशनल डोमेन में पहुंच जाना चाहिए और उसके लिए मेरे पास 2 रास्ते हैं. तो आप तुरंत पूछेंगे ना, वो क्या है. अनफॉर्चुनेटली लोग ऐसे नहीं बोलते हैं. वो क्या बोलते हैं, मेरे पास ये है, ये बहुत बढ़िया है, मैंने इसके अंदर ये डाला है, मैंने इसके अंदर वो डाला है. किसी को फर्क नहीं पड़ता आपके प्रोडक्ट या सर्विस के अंदर क्या जाता है. लोग सिर्फ एक ही चीज जानना चाहते हैं. અને તમને તો ખબર છે ગુજરાતમાં તો એક જ વાક્ય છે ને, મને શું મળે છે ભાઈ. मुझे क्या मिलेगा, मेरा क्या फायदा. सो आई गेस यू नीड टू हैव दैट अप्रोच कि वो खड़ा कस्टमर को जिंदगी में क्या चाहिए और क्या मैं उसको फिर डेवलप करके प्रेजेंट कर सकता हूँ. सिंपल टिप फॉर एंटरप्रेन्योर्स.
बिल्कुल सर, एकदम राइटली सेड कि क्रिएट वो चीजें बनाओ कि जो चाहिए. अगर मेरे को चॉकलेट चाहिए और आप मेरे सामने जूसेस लेके आ रहे हैं तो दैट वोंट वर्क डेफिनेटली. सो आवर चैट बॉक्स इज फ्लोइंग very heavily. बहुत सारे questions मिल रहे हैं, but if time permits, Praveen sir, maybe go with one more question.
We can take 2 more questions. Yeah.
Okay. So, Achal sir, अगला सवाल ये है कि like in this current scenario, entrepreneurs के बीच में एक और ये चैलेंज होता है कि उनके पास मल्टीपल ऑप्शंस होते हैं. लाइक मैं बाइक भी बना लूँ, मैं बाइसिकल भी बना लूँ, मैं ई कार में भी चला जाऊँ. सो इससे जुड़ा हुआ एक सवाल मेरे पास आया है कि डू यू सजेस्ट focusing on one business or 3 to 5 different earning sources are really required for the entrepreneur?
Correct. Again, a very common issue. And ये knee jerk reactions की वजह से होता है क्योंकि आप इतना वक्त देते नहीं हो. जो चीज आप सक्सेसफुल, जिसमें आप कामयाब हो सकते हैं और वो कामयाबी आपकी तरफ आ गई है, उसी वक्त आप अपना आइडिया चेंज करके दूसरी दिशा में चले जाते हैं. To put it very simply, I would say follow your heart, but take your brain along with it. लेकिन अगर थोड़ा डेप्थ में बताना चाहूँ तो देखिए ऐसा है, एक होता है आपकी कोर कॉम्पिटेंस. जिस चीज में आप एकदम माहिर है, आपको मजा आता है, आपको थकान, नींद, भूख, प्यास लगती नहीं है जब आप वो कर रहे हैं, वो चीज आपको पोजेस कर लेता है, वो चीज कभी छोड़ना नहीं चाहिए. दूसरा, ऑफ कोर्स, दुनिया को किस चीज की सख्त जरूरत है, देन यू कैन डिसाइड ये छोटा सा निश पकड़ूं या बहुत जनरल सा एक मार्केट को भी मैं टच कर सकता हूं. अब आपकी कैपेसिटी, आपकी कैपेबिलिटीज के ऊपर है दैट यू बिकम सक्सेसफुल इन वन थिंग एंड देन यू गो ऑन टू अनदर. बड़ी बड़ी कंपनियां फेल हुई है एक प्रोडक्ट में नाम कमाकर उसी ब्रांड को दूसरी जगह पर एक्सटेंड करते वक्त. अभी एंकर इलेक्ट्रिकल प्रोडक्ट्स में बहुत बड़ा नाम कमाया, लेकिन एंकर का टूथपेस्ट ना आप इस्तेमाल करेंगे ना मैं, क्योंकि हमको लगेगा शॉक लगेगा. तो मेरा कहने का मतलब ये है, यू आर गुड एट समथिंग, उसे छोड़िए मत. एंड वन मोर थिंग, जब आप बैठकर स्ट्रेटेजाइज करते हैं, ब्रेनस्टॉर्म करते हैं, 4 दिन 5 दिन 6 दिन 10 दिन बैठिए, सोचिए, कमरे से बाहर मत निकलिए, वही खाना पीना सब मंगवाइए, वहीं सो जाइए. Once you have come to a decision कि यही है और यही रास्ता है, फिर अगर कोई और आइडिया आया तो भी खुद की, वो क्या है वो दैट फेमस डायलॉग, एक बार मैंने कमिटमेंट कर दिया तो मैं खुद की भी नहीं, वही वाली बात है. इफ यू डिसाइडेड दिस इज द रोड यू वांट टू टेक, आई गिव यू माय ओन एग्जांपल. मैं सेल्स में गलती से आया, मुझे सेल्स में जाना ही नहीं था, स्टीफन्स में पढ़ रहा था, आईएएस ऑफिसर आईपीएस ऑफिसर बनना था, लेकिन एनफील्ड बुलेट को देखकर प्यार हो गया और बोला कि जो मुझे बुलेट देगा मैं उसके साथ काम करूंगा. एक सेल्स ऑर्गेनाइजेशन एमएनसी ने बुला लिया, बुलेट दे दी. बुलेट तो मिल गई, लेकिन दुनिया भर की सारी तकलीफें मेरा रास्ते में सामने. डाकू लोगों ने चंबल में पकड़ लिया, नदी में पानी आ गया, मैं दूसरे गांव तक जा नहीं सका, तकलीफें बहुत थी. लेकिन एक बार मैंने डिसाइड कर लिया था कि ये लाइन, कि पता क्यों, वेरी सिंपल, आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ देम शुड हैव सम नाइस कैची थिंग टू होल्ड ऑन टू. अगर मैंने नौकरी छोड़ दी, पता सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या होता है रजत, वो बुलेट को लौटाकर मुझे घर जाना पड़ता, और मैं बुलेट लौटाना नहीं चाहता था. तो वो कौन सा आइडिया, वो कौन सा थॉट है, वो कौन सा ड्रीम है, वो कौन सा विजन है जो आपको पकड़ के रखता है, उसे मत छोड़ना. तो फिर एक प्रोडक्ट हो, 2 प्रोडक्ट हो, 3 लाइन्स हो, 5 लाइन्स हो, that's not important. That depends on your capabilities and the needs of the market.
जी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया अचल सर. ये आपने एकदम सही चीज बोली है कि लाइक आई कैन रियली रिलेट इट, कि वो क्या है जो आपको पकड़ के रख सकता है, या वो क्या ऐसी चीज है जिसके लिए आप मतलब खाना पीना सब कुछ छोड़ सकते हो, एंड दैट्स द ओनली थिंग जो आपको आगे जाने के लिए मोटिवेट करेगी. और मैंने अमिताभ जी की आवाज में ये सुना भी है कि कोशिश करने वालों की कभी हार नहीं होती. तो डेफिनेटली चैलेंजेस आएंगे और प्रॉब्लम्स भी आएंगी, लेकिन वो एक चीज की, वो बुलेट वापस नहीं करनी है, या वो एक थॉट की नहीं, वो मेरा प्यार है और वो मेरी जो है गोल है, वो मुझे अचीव करनी है. और अगर अपन उस पर अडिग रहे तो शायद ही ऐसी कोई हर्डल्स होगी जो हमको रोकेगी, बट पीछे नहीं धकेल सकेगी और हमें अपना गोल अचीव करने में, हमें अपने मुकाम तक पहुंचने में बिल्कुल चैलेंजेस आएंगे, लेकिन यही तो वो सीख है जो एक एंटरप्रेन्योर को सीखनी है. दैट्स द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एन एंटरप्रेन्योर एंड एन एम्प्लॉय. तो बिल्कुल एक बहुत बड़ी लर्निंग थी हमारे लिए आपके साथ. और एक और बार फिर से बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने वक्त निकाला और अपनी स्टोरी शेयर की. और डेफिनेटली आई वुड रिमेम्बर योर बुलेट, कि वो बुलेट कभी वापस नहीं करनी है. एंड आई होप आवर व्यूअर्स, वो लोग भी ये याद रखेंगे कि उनकी लाइफ में भी जरूर वो बुलेट हो सकती है, वो एक रोज हो सकता है, वो एक ड्रीम गर्ल हो सकती है. एनीथिंग कुड बी पॉसिबल, बट समथिंग इज देयर इन देयर लाइफ. दे हैव टू रिकॉग्नाइज इट एंड दे हैव टू जस्ट follow the passion. They have just follow the roadmap, and the goal is waiting for them. Definitely, it's a great learning. अब आगे बढ़ते हैं और हम अगला सेशन
Rajat, yeah, before we announce another session, Rajat, I think I have one very specific question for Achal sir. So sir, on the first day we had Shiv Khera Saab, and we were discussing about lot many things again, on the same subject, and he was even recommending a few books for the entrepreneurship, and especially for the early risers and the startups. So you are the master for sales and marketing, and we would love to, in fact, I think it will be a great help for all the the startups and the entrepreneurs. Again, I will not use the word startup as you have said, right? But the MSME entrepreneurs. So can you recommend one book which every entrepreneur should read? I mean, it is something which is must. One book.
एक ही किताब है, वो जो भी एंटरप्रेन्योर है उसने जितनी बार जूते खाए, थप्पड़ खाए, गिरा, उठा, फिर से गिरा, फिर से उठा, उसको क्या करना चाहिए, वो हर कदम को कागज पे उतार देना चाहिए. उसकी जिंदगी की किताब वो पढ़े. There is no need to read anybody. You don't have to. मेरी किताब है Discovering the Joy of Selling, जो ये कहती है कि सेल्स करने से ग्राहक को सेल करने से सेल्समैन खुश नहीं होता है. सेल्समैन तब खुश होता है जब ग्राहक उसके कंधे पर हाथ रख के बोलता है यू मेड माई डे. तब जाकर सेल्स पर्सन डिस्कवर करता है जॉय को. तो मेरी किताब होगी. मैं कहता हूं उसे भी छोड़ो, अपनी किताब लिखो. मैं मदद करूंगा आपको वो किताब पब्लिश करने में, क्योंकि उस किताब से बेहतर कोई किताब हो ही नहीं सकती है. A book of your life, the book of your successes and failures. You will fail 93 times, you will succeed 7 times. But those 7 stories will be powerful, and the 93 stories will be even more useful for readers. So I suggest everybody writes his own or her own book of successes and failures. That's the best I can offer, actually.
I think that's a great message for this particular session from your side, sir. Thank you so much for this, and yeah, we are good to go, Rajat, and you can go for the next session. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much, Achal sir and
Recording
Praveen sir.
stop.